Welcome to Homosassa Springs State Park. We're underway on Pepper Creek today. Pepper Creek, for the most part, is a natural little waterway. It was once directly connected to the Homosassa Springs, but it's separated now by a drive that our trams use to get to the other side. And there's a culvert underneath that drive that allows water in and out of the creek, and a couple of spring fissures here and there on the creek to make it largely spring-fed. And there's your first big wading bird. That is the great blue heron right there. So this property was first developed back in the early 1960s by the Norris Corporation. Back in those days, it was known as a Homosassa Springs attraction. The place was more like a zoo back in those days, with a focus on exotic animals like lions, tigers, and monkeys. There was a man by the name of Ivan Tors, who was a Hollywood animal trainer. He kept animal actors here in the wintertime and in between filming movies and TV shows. The state of Florida acquired this property in 1989. The focus then shifted to species of wildlife that are native to Florida. And as they started to relocate all the exotic animals, our local newspaper, the Citrus County Chronicle, started a letter-writing campaign to petition the governor of the state to allow Lou, our famous hippo, to remain in the home that he'd already known for over 20 years. The governor back then was Lawton Childs. Governor Childs declared Lou to be a citizen resident of Florida. He's been allowed to remain in the park with us ever since. And Lou is quite special amongst hippos. Been in a few movies and TV shows over the years. The 6,000-pound Nile hippo, that makes it the largest hippo in the Americas. And Lou will turn 63 next month, on January the 28th. Born in 1960 at the San Diego Zoo. It makes Lou the oldest hippo in the world. Life expectancy of a hippo in captivity is 60 years, and Lou's well past that, still with us today. He's the last exotic animal left in the park. All the other animals that you'll see today are native to Florida. This park is somewhat of a refuge or rescue for these animals. Many of them have been born and raised in captivity and too heavily imprinted by humans to be released into the wild. Many others have suffered a disability or injury of some kind that they can't be fully rehabilitated from. Now that we're away from the visitor center for the next few minutes, we'll have a good glimpse of what old Florida must have looked like 400 or 500 years ago. Keep in mind that Homosassa is located in Citrus County, Florida. And in Citrus County, we're considered to be part of the Nature Coast. Here on the Nature Coast, we don't have large developments of high-rise condominiums, and we also don't have miles of man-made beaches that require tons and tons of imported sand. If you were to view the coastline of this area from offshore in the Gulf of Mexico, much of it still looks very similar to what the Spanish would have encountered when they first arrived here in the early 1500s. Up here in the northern part of the state, we consider ourselves to be the old Florida, or the real Florida. Many long-time residents and natives will tell you that draw a line across the state at Orlando. Everything Orlando and south could just be broadly referred to as Disney World. None of it's real. It's all man-made. And a lot of the beaches are also man-made. Heavily altered by Corps of Engineer projects like in the Everglades and on Lake Okeechobee. But up here in the northern part of the state, we're a little more like the way things used to be. Florida's always been heavily into agriculture of all kinds. Ocala has more horse flesh than Kentucky does. We grow all manner of vegetables and other items. And at one time in Florida, we used to have as much or more beef cattle as all of Texas. Why am I telling you all this? On the right is a good example of an old Florida forest. That thick undergrowth can be nearly impassable. The old Florida cowboys used to have to go into thickets like that to round up calves and cows and find them for market. They carried short whips with them. They cracked those whips and the sound would get those cows moving out of the brush. The sound of those cracking whips is also the real origins of the terms Florida cracker and cracker cowboy. There were ancient native people that lived here pre-Columbian times, meaning before Columbus. They lived here for nearly 2,000 years before the Spanish arrived. It was well before the Miccosukee and Seminole tribes became some of the first Florida transplants. Miccosukee and Seminole people did not originate in Florida. They were considered to be members of the Creek Nation that called Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas home. The first general store in the area was opened adjacent to Homosassa Springs in the early 1840s, and that was done by a military man and surveyor named William Cooley. William Cooley also founded and operated the Yulee Sugar Mill before he sold it to Yulee in the late 1840s. So you can still visit ruins of that sugar mill along Fishbowl Drive, very close to the park. And in the early 1900s, before people had automobiles and commercial airline flights, a lot of people would jump on a train and ride the rails down here to escape cold northern winters, eat loads of seafood, and swim in the springs. Now, they'd catch a train in Gainesville. That's where they'd switch trains at. They'd come down here to Homosassa on the mullet train. And the mullet train would haul back great iced bins of fish back up north for sale. And legend has it that they could have called it the moonshine train because quite often underneath the fish in those bins of ice were hidden moonshine jugs. Now that period of time began the first of several land booms and busts in the state. Land developers flocked to this area thinking they might develop a lot of it for some of the first snowbirds. Coming up on the right here is a concrete pyramid that's left over from that period of time. Now that was supposed to be a footer for a water tower for proposed development on this site. Due to the stock market crash of 1929 and the Great Depression that followed, that development was never realized, and this area has remained a green space ever since. Now, if anybody's wondering about the ancient people that lived here nearly 2,000 years, for nearly 2,000 years, you can visit another state park. A few miles north on Highway 19, you'll find the Crystal River Archaeological State Park. That park contains a complex of 6 mounds that were built by the ancient people. It's thought to be the longest continuously occupied site in Florida. Archaeologists believe that those ancient people occupied that site, conducting trade, ceremony, and burial for 1,600 years. Those ancient people had an extensive trade network even way back then. They have found copper artifacts there at that site, and there is no copper in Florida. Next point of interest coming up is going to be Osprey Island. There's usually a seasonal home to a pair of migrating osprey, but we haven't seen them yet this year. But this log up here has a couple of turtles on it. Those are yellow-bellied pond sliders or red-eared pond sliders. And with that cold snap that we had for several days, we may not be seeing a lot of turtles or any other reptiles because the water is still warmer than the air temperature. And the reptiles will tend to stay in whatever's warmer to regulate their body temperature. A couple of wood ducks coming up here on the right. You see a guy with fancy pinstriping on his head. That's the drake or male of the species. There's a little cute mottled brown duck that has some white eyeshadow on there. That's the hen or female of the species. And they're kind of shy. I'll make sure to step into the fishbowl underwater observatory during your visit today. You'll see a lot of fish there. You might even see a manatee, which will also be standing right in the middle of a 50-foot deep spring that has 50 to 60 million gallons of fresh water a day coming out of it. And that spring is the headwaters of the Homosassa River. Here in Florida, we have one of the largest concentrations of freshwater springs in the world. And all the water coming out of those springs is from an underground aquifer that runs into Florida from as far north as northern Georgia. And we have several state parks that feature a spring as their centerpiece. As I get ready to pull into the dock here, folks, just ask you all to remain in your seats until I get the ramp down for you. And do watch your arms and legs and other body parts, as I'll be pulling into a very narrow slip. I'm only going to have about 3 inches on either side. Don't want to start anybody's visit by dishing out Band-Aids. Thank you all for coming on the ride with me today. I hope you enjoy your visit in the park, and Happy New Year to you all.
Boy, I'd love to throw a line out there.
I'm sure you would. Look at how clear that water is then.
That must be the underwater territory. The first RVer. I got a picture of it.
Right under that lamp. It's like we're
Here, come over here.
I can lead us back out. You're gonna lead us back out?
They're making me look in the sun.
Yeah.
Aww. Oh,
Yeah, you can play the fine thing.
Yeah.
so cute.
Scary.
This whole thing
All the ones up in the tree.
I saw them.
Wait, I just realized.
Sitting down. On the back.
Cat. 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 You need to sit down, baby. Yeah. You want your shoes off? You take your shoes off? If I take them off, you cannot get out, okay? Caracara, crested caracara, and a red tail top. Pretty.
Oh.
Oh, they're called whooping cranes.
They had a baby a couple years ago, and then the baby grew up, and I don't know where the baby went, but they'll do the same thing. They will not, they just take their time in the middle of the road.
So that's Levi. And this is Peepers. You can tell the difference because of their leg bands. Peepers has a yellow band, Levi has red and green. Levi can fly, Peepers cannot because of an injury. Levi is part of Operation Migration to try to reintroduce whooping cranes to Florida. And he kept detouring over here to see Peepers and apparently just stayed. And now these two are permanent park residents.
Those are whooping cranes.
Got flamingos. And some ibis. What a beautiful bird.
Those are barred. B-A-R-R-E-D. Owls.
And these are barn owls. Hard to see them, isn't it?
Take it right out of your hand.
I did only see.
You see? I'm posing. I'm posing.
Vultures.
Great horn dolls with that one. Yeah. Oh. Oh.
Doing a perimeter check.
Did you watch that series? Twilight?
Oh, there's two of them, though.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't notice that. Here comes the other.
Hey guys.
A little bit lighter.
Did you hold this like?
Yeah, I think Jasper and Lulu. You can check the sign over there, babe. You need to stop.
Bring it up. Got the energy up.
Oh my ear, my
Called Being in Velvet.
I would think so.
Neither would I.
Not this time of year. So maybe it's different down here. I mean, they're definitely not involved up north.
No.
That's not a typical.
That one wants to get